Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, a leadership and networking organization for professional women. This podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. With me today is Wakamoto-Lee. She's a good friend and she's the owner of Cloud Benefits Consulting. She's a former health insurance broker who spent more than half her life in the insurance and benefits world like me. And now she's helping to navigate brokers through the world of clouded virtual contact as we go through this new world order. Welcome, Sue. I'm so happy to have you.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Let's jump into it. I want to talk about Cloud Benefits Consulting, where you're trying to marry two very different worlds. The world of insurance, which is sort of old and stale and not really an industry known for advancements in technology, and then technology, which is something you have a lot of experience with. Tell me where you saw the need to create your consulting company and why you decided to do that, especially in an environment that is perceived to be a challenging environment in which to start a new business.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that because, as you know, insurance is super paper-based, right? I grew up in insurance, doing paper applications, paper submissions. When the fax machine came around, it was the greatest invention ever. So, and then, and paper files. I used to work at the large agencies where half of the floor was a file room. And so paper was everywhere. And if you lost a file, it was gone. And as we moved forward in our industry, and I know even the insurance carriers started to get, somewhat electronic and digital, but we were still, you could still, right? You could still fill out a paper enrollment form even today.
Yeah.
I had actually been thinking about this before the pandemic happened, from some previous startups I had worked at, where I really saw how, we were already using tools like email, but why weren't we using other tools? Like, why were we still filling out paper applications when you could do a fillable PDF? We already had e-signature platforms that you could utilize, but we weren't using them for insurance. So all of these things started to come into play. And at one of the brokerages I worked at, we were doing open enrollment meetings digitally because we had clients in various states that had locations in multiple states. You can't do those in person. And so we were doing those virtually already. So taking all the experience I had and what I had witnessed when the pandemic hit, it wasn't now a luxury, it was a necessity.
Sure.
Right? There were agents that couldn't get into the office to get their paper files. And if they could, they still had employees that needed to access those paper files. But now the broker has them at his house and he's got an account manager that also needs that file. So all of a sudden now, insurance agents are now literally stuck. They can't work. They can't go see their clients. They can't enroll them. They can't even, in some cases, get their files. And so all of a sudden now they're stuck. And I needed to figure out a way for them to be unstuck. And I already had all this knowledge. And I thought, well, I need to share it. I need to share it. Yeah. And I've really enjoyed helping people manage through all this virtual technology so that they could actually service their clients and do it in a way that is also HIPAA compliant. I think that's a big deal. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we are going to talk about that in a minute. And help my listeners understand, because my understanding of what you do is at least twofold, and maybe I'm missing even a third piece. One is that, as you described, you're helping brokers, agencies, general agencies build a technology platform that allows them to function electronically, and some of that is just necessity now in order to be able to transact business. And so I would think that even some of the agencies that have been behind in adopting those advancements, the smart ones are going, hey, this is a fantastic time to build this platform. The other piece of what you're doing is you're helping to coach brokers and salespeople in our industry to present themselves using technology and to become more comfortable, so that they're not one of those people that, we see spoofs of on YouTube where, no, everybody's on mute. Nobody can get into the room. People are fumbling around. You're now seeing their desktop with their weird Amazon searches while they're trying to set up an enrollment meeting. And so the other piece of what you do you do the technology piece, but you also do the people piece. So tell me a little bit about that. And one of the questions I had that may feed into that is, what has surprised you about this process so far since you started your firm?
Yeah, so I do the coaching. You're exactly right. I have been able to help folks who, yeah, let's face it, like right now, you and I are probably talking each into a little black circle, right? We're not face to face. We're not eye to eye. We're having to talk to this dark lens. Yeah. And it's not natural. It's just not natural. So I'm helping folks to get comfortable with looking at the camera because, and I'm going to do this for a second, the default is to look at the person you're talking to. Well, now I'm not looking at the camera. Right. So it doesn't feel like I'm talking to you. So I have to look at the camera so that it feels like I'm talking to you. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I really try and hone in on with my clients. I also help them with, like you were talking about, screen sharing properly. And all of that even falls under HIPAA, right? If they show something that belongs to a client and they've shared it on their screen, they've now gotten themselves into trouble. So being able to do something as quote unquote simple as sharing a screen has become very important. Yeah. Even looking into the, looking at how you look on camera. Mm-hmm. I was at a forum that was put on by one of the associations, and one of the presenters, I kid you not, the whole presentation, we saw this much. We saw her nose, her eyes, and her forehead, and I thought, how does that happen? Because you see yourself. Right. And it was distracting. And she had a lot of good things to say, but Amy, I couldn't tell you what she said. Yeah. I really couldn't. So I think, people who are so used and are very good at presenting in a conference room, even on a stage in an auditorium, you stick them in front of a camera with a presentation screen and they're lost. Yeah. And so I'm really trying to help those folks do what they do best, but do it in a different medium.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, the dynamics a little bit different, and also getting comfortable with the technology is not something that it doesn't happen automatically. It has to happen with practice. It's like public speaking. You've got to do some run-throughs and fumble with it. And I love that you give insurance people sort of a space to do that before they have to do it in front of their clients, so that they feel more polished. And then of course they can focus on the information that they're delivering as opposed to focusing on the technology. So
yeah, literally my clients, they will present to me and we'll take like an hour. Right. They will present to me as if I was a client. So it's not a coaching session. They're doing the presentation. I'm taking notes. I record it for them, and then I give them detailed notes on how they can improve not just their delivery, but also their presentation. Right? I think we've all been, it's one thing when you're in an auditorium with a PowerPoint presentation that has 1,000 words on a slide. It's a whole other thing when you're doing it over Zoom or another virtual platform, because now you're not even in personal contact with the speaker. You're just staring at a page full of words, and it's boring. It's so boring. Yeah. We don't want to be boring.
We don't want to. Insurance is already boring. I tell people that all the time. It's boring. And yeah, I've even noticed how I've shifted my presentations. Like my open enrollment presentations are now walkthroughs of my enrollment platform, because it's more dynamic than a slide presentation. I actually want to show people what they're seeing when they log in, and show them what happens when you click here and how you access that. And it makes it more interesting for me too. But I want them to be engaged, and I've seen a shift in the way that I'm interacting as well. Tell me about HIPAA. You've mentioned HIPAA a couple times, and for people who aren't in the insurance industry or the medical field, talk a little bit about what HIPAA is, what the acronym stands for, and then I'd love one tip from you related to a common mistake that you see insurance professionals making when they're engaging online, and ways that they can protect themselves from making a HIPAA violation.
Yeah, so I always forget what the HIPAA acronym actually stands for. I think it's Health Insurance Portability and something Act, right? But it basically
yes,
something. But it basically has to do with protecting personal health information. And there's regulations all around it. And as insurance agents have to make sure that their communication with the client, their storage of the client files, all of those are under special regulations to make sure that they're safe, secure, nobody can access them. I was mentioning, I used to work in a company where half the floor was a file room. Well, the floor was locked. So you had to have a key card to get in, right? Well, thinking about that concept of we have to have a key card to get into a secure file room, are we doing that with our client files if we're using cloud storage, right? So many of us are using Box, Dropbox, Google Docs to store things, or Google Drive, I guess, to store things.
Yeah.
We're using Zoom, we're using GoToMeeting. And one of the things that I found, and you asked me what surprised me, one of the things that I found is that I think the majority of insurance agents that I've talked to are using Zoom. You and I are talking on Zoom right now.
Yep.
And in order to be HIPAA compliant, when you're talking in health insurance with your client and they're talking to you about personal health information, you have to make sure you have that business associate agreement in hand from your vendors. So in that case, it would be Zoom or GoToMeeting or WebEx. And I think one of the most surprising things that I've found that I've shared with agents is that, and I'm giving out a pro tip here, if you are using Zoom and discussing PHI, and you have just their basic pro account, you're probably not HIPAA compliant. Mm-hmm. They will not issue a BAA in that scenario. And I've talked to Zoom, so I'm not speaking out of turn. Check and see the plan that you have and ask for a BAA. Because if you don't have that in hand and something happens, you don't want to be in violation of HIPAA.
Sure.
But yeah, so I think we forget, right? You know, we're all so good about locking file cabinets and sending secure email, but we forgot about those other virtual pieces that have never played into insurance before, like virtual conferencing, video conferencing, and cloud storage. Those have to be HIPAA compliant also. Yeah. And when I do my talks at the different summits and conferences and things, I go over all of the different cloud storage that are available and which ones are HIPAA compliant, which ones aren't, and at which paid levels, all of those things, because I think we forget about that part. And I think the Zoom thing has really, when I share that with people, I see heads blown. What do you mean I'm not HIPAA compliant? So that is one of the things I discuss. I go through with my clients. I go through all of the tools they're using and making sure that they're HIPAA compliant. And it really is right for their safety as well as their clients.
For sure. So let's shift gears, because I gave you the opportunity to suggest a topic of discussion, and I love what you offered up. And anybody who knows the two of us knows that this is a good one. You used to work for Zenefits, and I'll let you share what Zenefits is. I've written some pretty scathing LinkedIn posts about Zenefits, and so I wanna have that conversation with you. Share with people who don't know what Zenefits is. Share with them what that company was about and how it's evolved and what it was attempting to accomplish in its first iteration in the insurance industry.
Yeah, so when Zenefits was first started, it was really the first digital broker that was on the market. I think there were a few others, and many have sprung up since then, most definitely. But they were the first digital broker who actually housed everything digitally. Open enrollment was done digitally. It really started with an open enrollment platform, and basically also an HRIS platform, in the sense that an HR person could go in, hire somebody, they would get the offer letter, and they would get a link to do their benefits, and that would bring them into Zenefits. So it was sort of we called it like a soup to nuts. So it was very much from the moment an employee was hired all the way through extending their COBRA. Yeah. So we kind of did from the beginning of the employee life to the end of the employee life. I was, from what I recall, I was employee 156. They used to issue us badges at the Christmas party to tell us what employee number we were. And I believe I was 156. At our peak, we had 1,800 employees. And I think there was a point there where all of us in the industry know what a BOR is, right? A broker of record letter. There were points there where we were getting 30 broker of record letters a day. Yeah. So it was quite an operation. We found, and my CEO, Parker Conrad, found that there were people who were really looking for a solution that didn't involve paper, that did not involve paper. And so we were a little different because, so we were a little different because go ahead.
What was your role at Zenefits?
Yeah, so I was on the broker advisory team, and I believe actually on that advisory team, I think I was the fourth broker that was actually hired. So somebody from the industry. And we basically did what a broker would do. So I trained a lot of folks, but I also had my own book of clients where I assisted them with renewals and open enrollments, just like a broker normally would, only I did it with no paper. Everything I did was online.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so when you suggested that we have this conversation, tell me where you wanted that to go. I'm super curious.
Sure. Well, as you can imagine, I've heard everything.
Sure.
I think I even shared with you, I have been yelled at, I have been cussed at, and these are, unfortunately at some, what's the word I want? Industry events.
Yeah.
I've lost friends. I was called a traitor. I got blasted on LinkedIn, privately. Yeah. So I've seen everything. I've even seen people walking around with F Zenefits shirts to make sure that I saw them. I've been at events where people saw my name tag and where I worked, and I didn't even know, total strangers, and they would tell me, where to go and walk away. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I think, I understood the reaction. And I will tell you that the move I made to Zenefits was the best move I ever made in my career. Did it end well? No. Was it a huge success? I wouldn't call it that either. We all know what happened. But at the same time, I think it was the best move I ever made because I did get to have a voice in how the direction the company went in. Parker and I would sit around and talk at times. We would disagree at times. When I went in there, one of the things I was really big on was compliance. And so as you can imagine, I still remember when we hired our general counsel for the first time, he came over to me and said, I understand I need to meet you. And I looked at him, I said, can I hug you? Because I was just so happy to have a cohort in compliance.
Sure.
So for all the good things I think Zenefits did, because I really do think it changed our industry for the better, we needed to move into the 21st century. I also know that there were obviously some things that were done just not right. And in full disclosure, I'm still friends with Parker. He and I have talked about the mistakes he made. He's actually owned up to some of the mistakes he's made. But I will tell you, he is absolutely one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And his intentions for what he wanted to do with Zenefits, I think were really good.
Doesn't surprise me at all that he is a smart person. I don't think he would have been able to accomplish what he had without being a very intelligent business strategist. And to fill people in who may not be familiar with sort of the rise and The rise and the
The
fall, the
fall.
rise and the pivot, the rise and the shift. I want to use the right word of Zenefits. Uh, what you experienced in terms of how people responded to you is totally inappropriate, and I am sorry that you went through that. That must have felt horrible, because you're obviously a human being, and you're making the best decisions with the information that you have, and nobody should experience that.
I did want to set the record straight that I have heard people say that, there were no real brokers at Zenefits. And actually, we did have quite a few people that were seasoned veterans in the industry with decades of experience. We had all different levels. Yes, we did have folks in the sales department that really were cold callers, but I think every agency that I've worked at anyway that was of good size had cold callers. And so
Sure.
we did have cold callers, but the folks that actually helped clients, especially so my book of business, my groups were 100 employees or more. Mm-hmm. So we weren't going to throw somebody who was new to the industry at a client that had 100 employees or more. So we did have quite a few seasoned veterans, but I've heard that thrown around that there weren't any real brokers at Zenefits, and I want to make sure that that's corrected.
Totally fair. And I thought back when I knew we were going to have this conversation about where I had the opportunity to express my opinions, and it seems so long ago now. One was a post that I wrote on LinkedIn about my experience as an end user, because I was working for a company that was using Zenefits to administer their benefits, and I was going through open enrollment. And as a health insurance broker, I was really curious about what that experience was like. Mm-hmm. And I certainly came to that experience with preconceived notions about where I thought Zenefits might not be providing the level of service that I would want to provide to my clients and that I would want to receive. And my experience validated that. And so I got to write a LinkedIn post that walked through, here's what I asked for, here's the response I got, here was my experience, here's what really concerned me about this experience. And because of the timing of it, it got over 10,000 views. It was just a time in which there was a lot of conversation going on about Zenefits. And so that experience was very, I tried to present it as matter-of-factly as possible, understanding I was coming from a position where, and I think a lot of brokers were coming from the position that Zenefits was potentially luring clients away from them. And that never feels good. I think that Parker Conrad was pretty direct that that's what he was trying to do. So he wasn't pretending. And I think his approach to that in some of the, we know the milkshake comment. I mean, his approach to that was what it set up a confrontational sort of environment between Zenefits and brokers that it sounds like got out of hand based on the things you were experiencing. My other more recent, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I know that milkshake comment, and Parker has said that he has regretted that comment. But I think I also, from I guess a perspective of having been on the inside, and Parker used to say this to us all the time at our all hands meetings. He said we are taking business from very few brokers who are really doing their job. And I know a few brokers who didn't lose any clients at all to Zenefits. Sure. And those were the brokers that we weren't ever going to get clients from anyway because of how they did business. Mm-hmm. And so I think, for as much derision that was thrown at Zenefits, I think, besides the technology piece, Amy, I think it also woke up brokers to the fact, and let's face it, I even worked for a broker that every Friday, you go golfing and all of that stuff, right? I think it woke up those brokers that really were sitting on their book of business that had been so good to them over the years. They weren't servicing those clients as much as they used to. And it was a wake-up call that, hey, there are other brokers out there that may take away your business. What are you doing to protect it? And like I said, there were brokers we didn't get any business from, and they should pat themselves on the back. Absolutely.
Sure. Sure. I think we will leave that there. I think that was all really useful information. And I appreciate you sharing your experience and you wanting to share your experience. And it's I have a lot of respect for you. And I know that experience informed how you're running your company now. And the level of technology and evolution that you want to bring to brokers so that they can be competitive and that they can stand toe to toe with other companies that are bringing higher levels of technology. So let's shift into my last question for you, which is about the e-courses that you're creating, because I think this is really exciting in that it's both using technology as a service for your consulting and providing a higher level of technological know-how to your clients. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'm putting together, it's basically actually a series of e-courses. They're going to be snippets. So I don't know about you. I love to learn. I love to learn online, but for me to sit through a 45-minute e-course is a little bit much. I think all of us, right, our attention spans are shortening thanks to, the different video streaming services that are out there. So really, these are going to be short, one topic courses, and they're not all formulated yet, but I'll probably just put it together as a package so you can either purchase the whole package or just purchase the modules that you like. So there'll be modules about video conferencing, about presenting, even about things as simple as internet bandwidth. I've found all of us are working from home now. My kids are going, my daughter's going to school from home, and a lot of folks are finding out they don't have enough internet. Right. And they don't find out till it's too late when they get dropped from a Zoom call, right? So things as simple as that people can just click on, take 5 to 7 minutes to learn about something, and then walk away with actionable information, right? That's where we invest our time, right? In things that we know we can actually act on. So that's what I want to provide.
I love it. Tell me where people can find you so that when that series.
So I'm very excited to say my website is almost ready to go fully live. So I can be reached at cloudbenefitspro.com. So benefits with a plural, cloudbenefitspro.com. You can reach me at Sue, S-U-E, at cloudbenefitspro.com.
It has been so delightful to have you on the podcast today. It's just good to see your face. We're usually at so many insurance industry events, and it's been a while since we've been in the same place at the same time. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast.
Thanks, Amy. It's always good to see you because we're the two ladies with the cool hair.
Amazing. It's been wonderful to have you, and look for more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to the Align Women Podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com and visit alignwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Align Women Podcast.